3, 2, 1. Let's go! I'm the host of the PBE podcast, Troy Tittlemeyer, and joined with Andrew Douglas, and I'll introduce him here in a second. Read his resume. But what's interesting, first of all, we got to talk about Trunkline. Trunkline is the premier Angie's List for the oil field. It's a website that you can put up your projects. You can put up, as a consultant, what you do. You can put up projects. You can track your project portfolio. You can track all your work, right? Internally review this thing with employees and say, this is what we learned from this job. This is how we can get better. It's a place to put all that, but it's also that super efficient link that you might need to win the bid. Somebody says, hey, this is what I need, this tank battery rebuilt. That's exactly what I do. Check out this link. It takes them to the website, and it takes you to the Trunkline page where you can learn more about what that company does, exactly their work, showcase your work, win bids. It's trunkline.com. And they got legendary oilfield socks. Mr. Andrew got a pair. And we met at the South Texas Geologic Society happy hour, which South Texas Geologic Society is holding the oil industry Christmas party. December 15th, we're all getting together. The people who are, working on this industry. Where is it going? How are we continuing to thrive with technology and the reality of oil and gas? We get all that network together. They're still looking for sponsors, so reach out to STGS if you're interested in sponsoring for that Christmas party, and definitely register. Register online, or you can come right at the door the night of and get a ticket and join this network and help us continue forward. But now on to you, sir, Andrew Douglas. Founded December 14, 2010 as AG Douglas Leasing LLC. We'll get to talk about that. As an independent petroleum landman, done several projects involving title work, leasing, and curative for EOG, Marathon, Double Eagle, Mongoose, Lewis Energy, Cinco Oil and Gas, Penn, Virginia, BP America, and more. Education coming out of Colorado at Boulder. So that's the Buffaloes, right?
That's right.
The Buffaloes.
Deion Sanders. Seen the headlines lately. He's the new coach.
Yeah, that's right. Sanders is now the new coach.
Yes.
All right. You're excited about football then?
I am. I haven't been excited about watching CU Boulder Buffalo football in many years, but now I am.
Because Deion. Because prime time.
That's maybe entertaining.
Starting your first work working with FCIA Management Company, and then going to the IDB Bank, International Capital Markets, and then Bank of Tokyo, Mitsubishi Investment Banking. Now, how do you introduce yourself now, Doug?
I'm a petroleum landman. I'm an independent contractor. Work with land companies. I also have some situations where I work directly with oil companies, and I do the title work. I tell you who owns the minerals. I tell you who owns the leasehold. I do leasing, so I negotiate the leases as well, and I also work with attorneys after all the landman's work has been turned in. It's been analyzed by the attorney. The attorney sometimes has some legal issues they have to clean up.
Yeah.
And so I'll help them with that as well.
How does someone get a hold of you?
I can be reached by email, and it's agdouglas with 2 S's at gmail.com, and my phone number is 210-459-4800. I'm right here in San Antonio. I do have some land up in Groesbeck, Gonzales, and Imperial, so I can have satellite offices out there as well if necessary. But really, most of my most of my work I can do right at home, right here in San Antonio. So
nice, man. Well, I got to learn a lot about you as an individual and like what you've gone through, and listening to your stories with your time in New York. And how that's gone. Obviously, the Twin Towers situation, being so close to that and experiencing something like that, man, that was very intense. And you brought me back. I appreciate you sharing those stories with us. But then kind of how that's helped mold you, and how you let it motivate you, and you let it speak to you, and how you said, I'm going to stay in New York. That I'm going to be here to rebuild after something like that.
Yes, sir.
Very inspirational. and then teaching us what exactly is in a lease. How does the lease get put together, and your thoughts on that, and helping me with these fractions versus percentages on leases. So I certainly learned a lot from you in this show, and I appreciate you your feedback and kind of you going through how you see the industry going in the next 5 to 10 years, what you want to be, right? How you want to build yourself in the next 5-10 years, but also your take on where it's going. I enjoyed the heck out of this conversation.
I did too. I appreciate you having me here.
This episode is brought to you by Trunkline. You probably know Trunkline as the company that makes the legendary oilfield horizontal drilling socks. And it's true. Our Drill Baby Drill socks featuring a heel-to-toe wellbore are 100% American-made and are designed right in the heart of the oil and gas industry. But did you know that Trunkline is also a revolutionary digital marketing tool that can transform the way you advertise your oilfield services? For only $800 a month, you can showcase your company's project track record on Trunkline, and our automated platform will boost your exposure through social media, email marketing, SEO, and more. Now, whenever one of your new customers asks you, "Can you show me an example of your work?" you can simply turn them to your Trunkline portfolio. It's more effective than a brochure, it's less expensive than sponsoring a hole at a golf course, and easier than maintaining your website. Join more than 200 service companies on Trunkline by signing up at register.trunkline.com today. Let's go. All right, man, let's start the conception part of the PB podcast. Andrew Douglas, I appreciate you taking time to meet up on the river here and spend some time with PBE Podcast, man. Tell us a little about yourself.
Thanks for having me here. My name is Andrew Douglas. I'm 48.
48 years young.
48 years young. Grew up in Texas and, went to school in Colorado, University of Colorado Boulder. I went there for one reason, because I didn't know what I wanted to do, and I love snow skiing. So I enjoyed, I was on the 5-year program there, nice. Undergrad.
Nice.
And got a finance degree, went to New York City, and worked in the
What the heck took you to New York?
Having that finance degree, and I was interested in investing, and also have some family up there, which was a good thing.
Your parents into investment banking and stuff like that, financial side of stuff, accountants or something?
No, my parents are right now. They're retired, and they're in real estate investing, and they're just kind of living their retired life. But they're all from up there,
New York.
They're from Pennsylvania, New York, but mainly New Jersey.
Oh wow, yes. Cool.
Yeah. They came down this way, and I was actually born in Atlanta, Georgia, and then ended up in Texas, and then Colorado, then New York, and worked some different jobs in New York City. The most meaningful ones were, I started off at one of my early jobs was a Foreign Credit Insurance Association. Kind of got me familiar with reading financial statements, and a lot of it was in Spanish. So, I was able to kind of pick up that skill, reading financial statements in Spanish. But that kind of got me motivated to. I was really interested in the job because it was international. I started, learning about international politics, and then from there, I went to work at IDB Bank, which is Israel Discount Bank. And I was there for about 5 years, and we did international lending. My territory was Eastern Europe and Russia, wow. Kazakhstan.
Wow.
Basically what we did is, we lent money to other banks, and then they lent money to the local population. So it's emerging market lending. And I was more on the research and analytical side than being, the business person. But I did get to go out there. Wow. And I went to, Austria, Hungary, Poland.
Is that right? You're in your 20s or 30s?
That was in my 20s. That's right after college, yeah.
Oh, man, what a great job.
Yeah, it was good. Russia, Kazakhstan, Turkey.
And you're out there doing research.
I'm out there talking to people because the main risk when you're lending to banks, of course, you have to have a good business, of course, but out there in the emerging markets, political risk. If you run afoul of the local politics, then you could be gone in an instant.
Your business is shut down.
Yeah, I mean they can find a reason to take your business away or confiscate it for themselves. So that political risk is the main risk. On the other hand, if you're in good politically, you open yourself up to better credit lines from the government. Like, for example, if a government official owns the bank and he needs some money to for funding, then that makes it easier to get loans. So
yeah, it makes sense.
And then a private individual in Russia who's on the wrong side of who's running afoul of the local politics.
Wow. So there's
Kremlin.
Such higher risk thinking about the private citizen trying to start a business versus someone who's a little bit more tied politically into the system who wants to start the same style of business. You're like, all right, both look like they're going to work, but it just as a financial risk or risk aversion, you're looking at the one that's tied to politics a little deeper, a little closer versus the private citizen. I mean, that's just a simple way to look at it.
Yes. My way to look at it is make sure you have good exit strategy. If you get in, you build a business, in Russia, for example, you want to get out and take your profits and wash your hands clean.
Yeah.
You don't want to be sticking around and anger the wrong individual, and next thing you know, they'll take your business. I mean, it happens. It's not like common occurrence. I don't know of many occasions where Americans went over there, started a business, and had their business confiscated, but it does happen. Sibneft, Siberian oil company. That's probably the largest example. That was actually a Russian citizen. But anyway, this is very interesting. It kind of opened up my eyes about that whole area, how it works. And, there was a big, in Kazakhstan, they have a really good, well-regulated banking industry, but they had a bank, I believe, I hope I'm saying the right one, I'm pretty sure, BTA, Bank Taranalem, which was appeared to be a wonderfully run bank. And they had a guy come in there, and he took a lot of the funds, and I don't think they went bankrupt, but they may have, and that caused a lot of headaches for international lenders. So even in a place that appears to be well regulated, you get the wrong person in there behind the bank, mm-hmm. and criminal basically is what happened. And next thing you know, your bank is possibly going into bankruptcy, and all the lenders will, lose money.
So let's rock it back. You're working for a international lending company.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was a bank that we lent money to emerging markets.
Where did the money come from for you? Where did your money
Depositors,
come from?
Mm-hmm. Fund mainly, and whatever kind of loans that they had on their books. I couldn't tell you what kind of loans they had.
So it was borrowed money. It was deposited money from individuals, mm-hmm. or other companies.
Yep, that's how banks are funded, right? Mainly deposits and some other funding. And then we lend to emerging markets, and then they lend.
You're running around Kazakhstan going, all right, I got all this money in the bank, and these people have agreed. They understand what's going on, right? Obviously, mm-hmm. Like, you're going to take our money and go to another country and find businesses that you think is going to work in that market, and you're going to double my money, triple my money, whatever. Mm-hmm. You're going to provide some kind of return on my money.
Yeah, it's all return. It's fixed. It's a fixed return. So what
kind of percentages are we talking about?
Well, just as an example, depends what the interest rates are at the time. So just as an example, if we lend 7%, they take our money, they lend it to the local population at 12%. They get they get paid back, and they pay us back, and then we will renew that loan, or maybe we'll go somewhere else with the money. But
So then you're turning around and providing a 5% to the people who funded that, or you're providing a 7% rate of return on that money to the people?
so we'll lend it to their bank, their
Yep.
local bank in Russia or wherever, 7%.
Yep, they're
They'll
paying you
take it,
7.
They'll lend it to their guys
At
say
12.
12% as an example.
Yep.
They'll get repaid.
Yep.
They'll make their money, and
Yep.
then they repay us.
But you guys got to pay somebody out, right? You got to pay the
right. Whoever funds us, but a depositor, maybe they're just 2%.
Wow.
So we have to pay them 2%.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Or,
Wow.
whatever.
Interesting.
That's how it works.
That's how business works.
Yes, sir.
For sure. That's right.
Yeah. So that was interesting. Then I did a little investment banking after that. It's more research related, and it was a syndicated loan business where
Yeah, I've
we did
heard this
buyout
term,
loans.
syndicated loans. I've heard this term. I don't know much about it.
Basically pooling funds. Banks get together and
Oh, wow.
just as an example, 10 banks may maybe there's a company that needs $10 billion to buy out another company.
Yeah.
So the banks will and they need to raise $10 billion to do it.
Yeah.
They don't want to use their own money. They want to use banks' money. So the banks will pull together and,
Wow.
say
So kinda-
20 banks, maybe we'll pull
Whoa.
$10 billion and
Now
Same
that
deal.
thing that thing's called something else. All these banks are
lead
behind it. but
arrangers and
Wow.
there's different
that's a syndication.
levels. Yeah, we
Syndication.
syndicate. Yeah, we're a syndicate.
Okay.
That's right. So I did that for a couple years. Again, I was on the research side of that. And then, I did that, but even before I took that job, I knew I wanted to come back to Texas.
Really?
Yes.
Right on.
It's kind of like, I kind of felt imprisoned there. Like, I kind of felt like, I was there for 10 years. I kind of felt like it was work prison. Because you go to New York City, you live in a closet. If it wasn't for Central Park there, I would have gone probably crazy. I mean, that was my outlet for nature. You could go out.
It's a
Central
cool
Park's
park.
awesome.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Yep. I agree. Guggenheim building right next to it.
Yeah.
It's a pretty cool looking building. But
Yeah.
it's just, you can get kind of lost in Central Park and feel like you're not in New York, which is crazy to think about. But
Yes.
the trees are big enough. There's enough topography. Like you can get back in there and feels like nature. That's really interesting.
Yeah, it was great. I lived on the Upper West Side, and
Upper West Side.
I have all kinds of friends from all around the world. Well-educated people, smart people, worldly people who, there's still some of my ski buddies to this day.
Is that right?
Yeah.
So
since I
from
moved
New York
back.
City, how far are you away from skiing?
Well, they have, skiing in Vermont, which I didn't do
Okay.
much of, unfortunately, because I was always working. They have some ski resorts in
Like
in New
upstate,
York.
kinda?
Hunter, which is horrible, I think, because it's just so crowded. Because everyone from New York City goes there whenever
Yeah.
it's a good ski day.
Yeah.
It's just, So the way to do it is to go in the middle of the week when everybody's at work. And
Right.
they had some other resorts there. Just their names aren't ringing a bell, but
What's the coolest resort you've ever got to, skiing wise?
let's see. I think Steamboat. I'm talking about. You talking about it anywhere or up there?
Anywhere.
I think Steamboat is great.
Where is that?
It's northern Colorado,
Okay.
and then I usually go to Breckenridge, Keystone. I got kids now. To teach someone, Keystone is great.
Is that right?
Yeah, it's very convenient.
What's the trick about skiing? What's the trick here?
Muscle memory. You just got to keep doing it, man.
Damn it! So you just gotta bite the bullet and go a few times,
Yep.
and you'll get it.
Yep. You
Okay.
got to just learn how to stop, and you have to overcome that fear. You have to keep turning. That's the main thing. Turn, turn, turn. Don't eat. Don't clinch up and stop.
Yeah.
You got to keep turning. That's how you learn. Same thing with snowboarding. Even though it may seem dangerous, you just have to keep turning. Yep. And you have to have your weight in the right place. That's the other thing. But
Yeah. No. Some minor details there.
yeah.
Snowboard. I'm horrible on the snowboard. Just absolutely.
Yeah.
just
You got to
a
bust
mess.
your head a few
Yeah.
times.
Oh
and
yeah.
Make sure you have a helmet.
All right, so you're skiing, you're doing your New York thing, but you want to get back to Texas. Why?
Man, I miss the wide open sky. I wanted to own land. It was more of a nature thing. Being in the city like that, maybe I could have started over and gone out to a more rural community, but I figured I'll just go back to Texas. I love Texas anyway.
Yeah.
I just feel more free here. And it's less expensive. It's a less expensive place. If I wanted to have a family and, to do that up there in New York and, or New Jersey and, start from zero, buy a house, all that kind of stuff, man, you're going to be, it's not an inexpensive place to live.
Yeah.
It's very expensive compared to Texas. Of course, Texas is getting a lot more expensive each year. It seems like double-digit inflation here. Even before this recent inflation hike, especially down here in South Texas, ever since they started fracking, it's been 10%.
Is that right?
I think so.
Wow.
The official numbers don't say that, but with all the people moving here and ever since the fracking started, I've seen double-digit inflation with just about everything.
Wow.
Every form of insurance. Health insurance, of course. Even my insurance on my home, homeowner's insurance, and food costs, grocery stuff. Everything's just been double-digit inflation.
So back in New York, before you come to Texas, what years are we talking about here?
Let's see. Approximately, I'm real bad about this, what year. So I got out of college in 98, and so I was there in New York from about 99 to about 09, and then I came back. I've been back since about 09.
So were you in New York City when the towers got?
I was. So my train stop is the World Trade Center.
What?
Yeah, and that day I actually went to work early, which was rare for me. I don't normally go to work early. I never did in corporate American jobs. I just, whatever. I just never got to work early. I just wasn't one of those guys. But I did that day. I went 10, 15 minutes early, and I'm sitting at my desk on Rector Street, which is, like 2 blocks away, and, heard the first plane crash. We all thought it was a Cessna or something like that. We didn't know it was a commercial.
How loud was that impact, though?
You could hear it. It was a big boom. And
I just don't know. Like, a small plane's going to make a big boom, man.
It didn't occur to us. It didn't register yet. And even when we went out, I went down the elevator, and there was a big commercial tire, plane tire, right there, leaning up against the building, one of the planes.
No,
and it still didn't register to me. And it still didn't register to me when I looked over and saw a body.
Oh my God!
As flat as a pancake. That only saw one body there, and I saw another body like that on the other side, but it still didn't register that this was a commercial jet until I went back up. And then, boom, the second one hit, and that was it. I was already in, flight mode there. I didn't say a word to anybody. I went down the elevator, and I started walking as fast as I could. I went over to the East River. I walked past the Trade Center, and it's like raining different, paper and stuff like that's coming down. I didn't stick around. I went straight to the East River. There's a lot of people were out, like ants, all crowding the streets, and I just kind of weaved my way through everyone and started walking north. And then I got to Midtown, and suddenly when I'm in Midtown, about Penn Station area, 34th Street, all these people start running out of the building. And I said, what happened now? And this girl tells me, the Trade Center has fallen. And I didn't believe it. I said, no. Maybe there's a fire, maybe some floor, maybe something happened, but I don't think the Trade Center fell out. They were all running out of the street to look downtown to see where the Trade Center used to be.
Oh my gosh.
So I'm still walking.
How far are you away from the trade centers at this point?
34 blocks approximately, because I was downtown and I walked 34 big blocks north, and I'm still
Each
not
block
believing
is like
it.
a quarter mile kind of thing, or what's a block? Block is like a tenth of a mile.
I'm not really sure. You know what?
You're a mile away. You're two.
At least a mile away.
You're a mile away
Yeah, at
from
least. Probably more than that. I mean, I power walked. I was walking as fast as I could, and looking up in the air to see if there's another plane coming, whatever. But the most amazing thing was after these people ran out was there was a truck parked on the side of the road, and it had its doors open, and had the radio turned up all the way, and it said a plane has now hit the Pentagon. So to me, that was the biggest moment where I was like, this is war. We're at a war right now.
It's an attack.
Yeah. And so I walked all the way up to 64th Street and checked my email and heard from all kinds of people that I hadn't heard from in years. And people, sending me emails, checking on me.
Yeah.
And fortunately, I had some family over there in New Jersey, and so I got on the train and I was gone. I
went to Jersey.
Yeah, I went to Jersey and went to spent a few weeks with Grandma.
Holy cow, man!
Yeah, it was intense. I sat next to one guy. I had this other job where I was doing interdealer brokering. I don't really get into it because I kind of more or less just sat in a seat for a year doing. I didn't really get into that job, but the guy next to me, he was a good interdealer broker, and he went to Cantor Fitzgerald, which is the top floor of the Trade Center. His name was James DeBlaze. He is interesting because he was a Dallas Cowboys fan.
Hey, my kind of guy.
Yeah. And he ended up passing away because so this guy sat next to me for 1 year. I got to know him very well, obviously. He went up to the top floor in Cantor Fitzgerald, and he died because the plane hit below him. My other boss at the trade credit business, he left and he went to work for Aon in the other trade center building. And when the first plane hit, he took the elevator down to the bottom floor in the courtyard, and then a plane hit right below his office and killed everybody in his office except him and whoever else was with him when they went down there to the courtyard. Yeah, so it was pretty intense.
Yeah, dude. Like, what did that do to like your mentality as a young man like that? After that, did it inspire you in some strange ways, or like
it did
motivate you?
It motivated me. I was thinking about leaving, and instead I said, you know what, I'm gonna stay right here. And I ended up staying there for another 8 years or so. Instead of just leaving and getting out of there, I wanted to be part of the regrowth there and not let those people dictate, the rest of my life because of, they decided to come over there and
attack,
be terrorists. Yeah. And I wasn't going to let them, ruin my life and ruin the area. And what was interesting was after the attack, you would think that the housing market would plummet, wouldn't you?
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, one thing that may come out of this is I may actually, be able to buy a place here, because I'm going to stay, and I'll go ahead and buy a place because there's probably an opportunity to buy a place here now because the place stinks and there's smoke everywhere, but they cut the interest rates. And that to me was, I saw the power of interest rates for the first time. So they cut interest rates.
Just in New York City? Or?
No, this is federal. They cut the Fed funds rate.
Wow.
They cut it to like 0. And so guess what happened to the housing market? It got way more expensive, and there was all the properties, despite a terrorist event, because funding was so cheap.
Yeah, you're getting money basically for free.
Piled in there, and so there was no opportunity for me to buy a place. I was still a renter, but I guess I had other things to worry about. But yeah.
Now, so you go back to work. Like, how long did it take before you're back in the office and back kind of doing your thing?
It only took about 3 weeks.
Wow.
Even though we were right there, and it was I forget the exact term they used for the zone, but it was smoke everywhere, and it smelled really bad. It smelled like a burning building.
Wow.
But they relocated us from downtown to Midtown.
Okay, I see.
And so I worked there in Midtown for a while.
And what were you doing after the Trade Center attack? What was your job?
At the time of the Trade Center, I was working for FCIA, Foreign Credit Insurance Association, where I was an underwriter. Basically, what they do is whenever a company exports product to, say, company in Texas sells product to a company in Mexico, for example, and they're waiting to get repaid, that's the insurance, that's the risk that we insured. If they didn't repay, it was repayment risk, then we would pay. So,
oh, wow.
Yeah, so we have to analyze all these companies overseas.
Make sure that they're going to pay their bills.
They can repay. Yeah, we had to analyze their credit risk. Yeah.
Wow.
So that's what I was doing at that time. And then I went from there to that international banking job.
Wow. Now, it's interesting you talked about the power of interest. You said the power of interest
rates.
Right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
We're kind of seeing the other
That's
thing
right.
going this way. What do you, what's your thoughts now that you're seeing it go the other way?
Right. Well,
and has it happened before? I mean, it's happened. I know in the 90s or whatever, my parents were buying a house at like 12, 15%.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I know it's but since 2001, when you saw it go to zero, is this the first time it's starting to just peg?
Well, in my opinion, they should have raised interest rates a long time ago.
Interesting.
But for political reasons, they've kept them so low because they want to, show the populace that GDP increased by 3% or whatever numbers they want. They should have raised interest rates a long time ago. I think cheap money is never a good idea, and 0% interest on money it just causes bubbles. So they should have raised interest rates a long time ago, but for political reasons they didn't. And this is Bush administration, Obama administration, Trump administration, all of them.
Wow.
They should have raised interest rates.
And the idea of not doing that, they suppress the interest on the money.
It props up the stock market. They keep interest rates low. People keep putting money into the stock market. I mean, there's some things that come out of it that are good. I mean, there's more opportunities for technology companies. They tend to invest more. I believe some.
Yeah, but that gets me thinking about different things. If you're propping it up and you're spending money because it's just kind of there, how much of that is waste?
Oh, a ton. Private equity. No offense to anyone, no offense, but private equity. I've seen some waste from private equity in the oil industry. The way that they spent. I've been doing this for 10 years now, and I work with different land companies, and some land companies they're contracted with the oil companies, and I've seen some of these projects, and they could have been more efficient with the way they've been spending money. That's for sure.
Operations and just buildings and like equipment, or what do you mean?
Probably all of that, but I'm speaking just from the land part of doing the land work more economically.
Oh.
So
okay.
Yeah, so whenever these interest rates go up, there's less opportunities probably for private equity because there's not so much money that's flowing to them now. People can put money in the bank now and get a decent rate of return on their money there.
You're right.
That's part of it. But as these interest rates increase, funding costs increase, and the natural result of that is the housing market is not going to be as robust, and that's already happening. The prices here in San Antonio, even, which is a pretty conservative market, I think they're down 20% off their highs, and I think places like San Antonio, with all the people who are moving here between here and Dallas on I-35, I don't think any monster crash is coming here.
Okay.
I think, probably, if anything, 5-10 years from now, our homes probably be twice as much as they are right now, I would say.
Wow.
10 years from now, I think that's fair to say.
Wow. A $500,000 house going to be $1 million home?
I think so.
Holy shit,
I do.
Man.
I think
really?
That's very reasonable to assume.
Holy.
Because all these people were moving here. So, there's that demand. That's great, but I personally don't like paying property taxes. So,
that's a big deal in Texas.
It sure is. If it were up to me, my property taxes in my home grow at 1% a year. That'd be fine with me as long as my investments, they're growing at 10-15% a year. That way I don't have to pay all these property taxes. The way I'm invested, I like this. I like the Berkshire Hathaway stock because they don't pay dividends. It's all just growth, price appreciation. So there's no tax bill that comes along with it as the stock grows. Yeah, I don't like paying taxes.
That's I think goes for most people, and that's interesting. So the Berkshire Hathaway stock is it like a bundle of things, or is it?
It is.
Okay.
It's Warren Buffett's business, and Charlie Munger. It's
their business. What do you mean their business?
Well, it's a bundle of all of their different businesses. That it's kind of a conglomerate of their business. They're mainly insurance, but they have a big stake in Chevron, I believe. They Mid-American, Oxy. Yeah, I believe they have Chevron. I may be mistaken with that, but
so it's energy, it's tech. Insurance.
They have all different. They have Geico is one of their big businesses.
Wow.
See's Candies. They have all kinds of stuff.
And so all those individual businesses are making their own returns and their own cash flow and all that stuff, and somehow that's all circled into this one stock, the value of this one stock?
Yes. Yeah, there's, the parent company is Berkshire Hathaway.
Okay.
And Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger take all that money and they invest it, and they do not pay dividends to us. So the stock just keeps growing. It has over the last 30 years has done very well, although it hasn't done great ever since interest rates have been low, actually. So that's why I like that stock, just because there's no taxes to pay because they don't pay dividends. But the price appreciation has been pretty consistent over time, and that's what I like about it.
How do you how does one go about getting these stocks? How do you buy these stocks?
It's ticker symbol BRK/B. It's you just buy the stock. You just have your brokerage account, and then you just buy the stock, just like you buy.
You have to pay for a brokerage account?
Yeah, but no, you just have to fund a brokerage account.
Okay.
So, for example, I use Charles Schwab, and I don't even think they charge for transactions now. Maybe it's like $5 to buy a stock, and then just over time you have a nice nest egg as long as you've invested decently. I mean, you can even just buy an index fund, which has done great over 20 years. You just keep investing. When the market's high, when the market's low, when the market's not doing anything, just keep investing. In 20 years.
So you're putting money into Charles Schwab, the brokerage account, and then they're allowing you to buy a Berkshire Hathaway stock at some amount plus $5 per stock.
Yeah, that's their transaction cost.
And now you hold that. You hold what? A piece of paper that says you get it in the mail, and it's like, hey, thanks for buying 10 stock.
No, I look at my computer and I see that how many shares of stock I don't actually get the paper stock. They don't really do that anymore. It's just you just own a piece of the equity pie, which is a piece of the company.
So you buy 10 stocks, you own like 0.0001% of this company because you got 10 other stocks.
Mm-hmm. Just like buying any other stock,
Okay.
Apple, Amazon, whatever it may be.
Okay. Yeah. It seems pretty simple. As long as you have enough money, and you got to have a decent amount of money to put into these things, right?
Well, what I tell everybody, I think everybody should be invested in the stock market. And I said the first thing you got to do is just open up a brokerage account and put $1 in there. Get yourself started,
Right.
and then be consistent over time. Just keep investing. Keep investing whether you put money in every 6 months or every month or whatever it may be. Just keep doing it. Just something, and then you'll have a nest egg. It should grow over time as long as you're a decent investor in the stock market.
Yeah.
That's how you beat inflation, by the way. That's how your money beats inflation. Your money just keeps growing.
Right.
So if that grows, if your equity grows at 12% and
Inflation's-
inflation is 3 to 5%, you're beating inflation. Your money's
You're
beating
making
inflation.
7% on that. You got 7% over inflation on that.
Yeah.
Right? Something like that. Interesting. Yeah. Yeah. A lot of that stuff is just, I don't know. I'm just never grown into it. Never really had anybody in my life saying like, hey, here's kind of how it works.
I'd be glad to walk you through it if you ever.
Yeah, no, I'm certainly interested in getting your
Sure.
thoughts on that. For me, it was, I had parents that they just worked, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
They just paid in as W-2s their whole lives, and both of them were in the union. And so I guess I had I do have this, for me, a reality or a truth is, your future is going to be only as good as the work you put in.
That's right.
And so I'm building companies and I'm taking all this risk, but it's in me,
Mm-hmm.
and there's a lot of stress and a lot of things that come with that aren't fun to deal with. But I just have this kind of, I guess that mentality keeps me away from thinking, oh, I'm going to invest in Warren Buffett,
Mm-hmm.
that guy's, doing it, and that's what the stock market feels like to me. I'm investing in someone else. Mm-hmm. And their work ethic, their ability to do things straight and not tank companies because things happen that way. So it's a big kind of mystery. And then I watched, of course, the Madoff series,
Mm-hmm.
the Bernie Madoff series.
Or the Friedman.
Oh man,
SBF, the most recent one.
Yeah, the new one. And I'm going, okay, yeah, I don't know what's going on, but I think it's a big old game, and I'm not really in it. Right. So I'm going to let that kind of go.
Yeah, I can see why that would turn you off. And it is actually, I believe, people who really get rich, sure, they have money in the stock market, but they're the ones who really are doing what you're doing, growing your own business. It doesn't hurt though to have put a little money aside and leave it alone.
Yeah.
And watch it grow over time, even if it's an insignificant amount.
Right.
It's good to have a nest egg back there. I believe.
Yeah. No, I think that logic does make sense, and I'd be super interested to learn more from you about that as we develop our friendship and maybe even working together. So that'll be cool. I'm interested in that. You talked about being in New York during 2008, 2009, then you moved to Texas. I mean, that's the biggest financial crisis on Wall Street since the beginning of Wall Street, arguably, or since the Depression, or the recession in the 70s.
You're right. It was amazing how shocking it was. I mean, you have a lot of these guys who work for these places that are supposed to be cream of the crop. Bear Stearns, Lehman Brothers, just like a snap, just gone.
Wow.
Because they were over leveraged. And yeah, it was. I would say it was almost as shocking as 9/11 to be right next door to Lehman Brothers, which at the time I was working for a Japanese bank, very conservative, doing our thing, syndicated loans. And then, to see everyone from Lehman Brothers walking on, out in the street with their
box of trophies.
Yeah. Just,
Whoa.
just fired, done. it was very shocking.
Wow.
It sure was.
Somebody was just recently telling me the difference between now and then is something about like the way the money is borrowed in companies like that now. There's like there's something, I can't remember exactly how this goes, but it might make sense to you. So like that company, right, was their own company doing their own thing, and they weren't really backed. At some point, they were just backed to a wall of cash flow and borrowed money. But now, the banks, or the way that the borrowed money is attached to that company, you can reorganize the business under like some new bankruptcy schedule thing that basically gives the company and gives the situation time to reorganize all that debt and all those mistakes and all that waste, so that there's not, in the future, there's not going to be, the company's done.
Sounds like what you're describing is a Chapter 11 bankruptcy, which that's been around for a while. Chapter 7 is when you liquidate.
Okay.
But the Chapter 11 will give you
This
time
reorganization, giving you time, or because the
to
banks
get a haircut on your debt.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
So,
part of that.
That's interesting. So that is kind of that's kind of where things are going, or where things are at.
Oh, that's been around for a while. It's just
Okay.
it just depends on how much the company has been ruined. If it really has no hope, then just liquidate Chapter 7. If it's something that can be an ongoing concern, then they'll do a Chapter 11, and
Do
of
everything
course
they
the
can.
equity, the people, anyone who owned the stock, the equity people with Chapter 11, they get wiped out.
Okay.
So they go to zero, and then the whoever their creditors were, they'll typically lose some money there.
But not all the money in
Of
that.
course, guess who gets fees though? The investment bankers do when they do I forget the term now, but it's basically the bankruptcy loan. There's fees there. It's on the tip of my tongue. DIP, I believe. Whatever. I can't think of the name of it now. It's been 10 years since I've been in the business, so.
So that transition of major debt getting bought and repackaged in a different way. There's someone taking off the top of those transactions, is what you're saying.
Yeah, the bankers get fees. They do the same thing. They syndicate these bankruptcy loans, and then they get fees for doing that as well. So yeah,
Son of a gun.
they got fee, but their very own bank may have lost. Well, what they do is they'll only hold. So these banks that loan, say, $1 billion, they don't keep the $1 billion on their books. They sell it off, and because they don't want to be exposed to all of that risk. Maybe they have credit limits where they can only hold a certain amount of exposure. So they'll sell it off. They'll reduce their risk that way, and it's off their books now. They don't have anything. Maybe they lent the money, but they sold the debt off to some other banks or hedge funds or insurance companies, I believe, can buy it. And then they'll have more capacity to do more loans and get more fees.
Wow. Did you ever run into Bernie Madoff?
I did not ever run into Bernie Madoff.
You never ran into that guy?
No, no. There's so many people working the finance industry, and I wasn't in those kind of circles, man. I was like 25 years old, right out of University of
That guy
Colorado.
was like the chairman of the whole thing, wasn't he? He was like the guy.
Yeah, well,
of the stock market.
There were, look how far this guy, SBF, I can't think of his name, Sam Bankman-Friedman, whatever his name was, this crypto guy.
Yeah.
I mean, the guy looked like Jeff Spicoli. Familiar with Jeff Spicoli? No. He just created a fraud, and that's what it looks like to me, at least. He had no controls, and so many people just went with it. Tom Brady.
Oh no.
A lot of people who were considered to be good investors, they lent him money, and It was all just a charade, looks like. But a lot of smart people, you know what happens is a lot of people, that fear of missing out.
Right.
FOMO is what they call it,
FOMO.
right? Yeah, so you have so many people who are, they see these people getting rich.
Right.
And they say, there's a lot of smart people doing that. And, all
Yep.
these influential people,
Yep.
but those influential people who are peddling it, they're getting fees. They're like one of the guys, I can't think of his name right now, but he got $15 million for marketing this whole FTX
Wow.
market. And
Wow. So once you get the guy out on the street corner and he starts getting good sales and people are walking up, and then you got the rest of the whole block going, what's going on over there?
Exactly. Same sort of thing.
Some of those early buyers are now turning it around going, hey, I'm getting a cut. And now they start helping to sell. They're getting a cut. That ramps up quick.
That's what I'm talking about with these, whether you're starting a business in Russia, all these high risk things, the thing is to get out or reduce your investment so that you don't lose any money. So,
Interesting.
You invest $10 million, maybe sell half once it's worth $20 million. You know what I mean? So you get your money back,
right,
and then let it ride,
and then see what happens.
Yeah.
Keep rolling.
Yeah.
Interesting. So, what's the difference in your opinion? Internationally investing versus in the United States investing when it comes to the individual or a bank or whatever, right? What's your opinion on that?
My opinion is to keep your money right here in the United States. Maybe there's some exceptions. Maybe London, England, okay. But if there's political risk, you got to look at the political risk when you're investing overseas, because even in Mexico, not that far away, right? They nationalized the oil industry.
Right. So
again, if you're going to go into emerging markets, I would just say, have an exit strategy. Once you make a certain amount of money, get out. Unless you want to stomach the political risk and, take the risk that you could lose everything, because you could.
Yeah. Yeah, the political risk is definitely interesting, uncharted territory in some of these things. Like if they start building something in Mexico that seems like a great investment, they're building infrastructure, they're putting people to work, and someone like you is going in there and doing the research, going, okay, who's writing the rules and regs between the government and the people that are bringing in that money to build the jobs and all that stuff, and you got the drug situation and the cartels that are involved in that. How the heck do you actually get the research done and figure out what's really going on? Or do you always just you're assessing what you can, and there's a lot that you don't know in international research like that with political risk?
That's right. I think one good way to profit off of it is to be like here in San Antonio, the head of Lewis Energy. He's a consultant, and I read an article that he gets paid $1 million a year to be a consultant. So there you go, you get paid $1 million a year, and you have no investment there. That's one way to go about it, not to lose any money. But if you want to invest in any kind of equity, then you overseas, you definitely have to look at the political risk.
Interesting.
Yep. Or keep it here. There's political risk here in the United States too.
Yeah.
But you're more aware of what it is here than what it is out there.
Yeah.
If you're investing in Russia, they don't even have a free media out there, so maybe you won't get all the information.
Right.
But what I did, like when I worked for IDB, Israel Discount Bank, is I picked up the phone and I called correspondent bankers and talked to them and said, hey, what's going on? Who really owns this bank? It's one of the government officials and the Kremlin owns it. Okay, that's probably pretty safe. Not necessarily though.
Yeah.
But you kind of, that's how I got a feel for
Right.
whether or not we should invest in that bank in Kazakhstan or not.
Right.
Who owns it?
Right.
That's the first thing.
Wow. Man, interesting. All right, let's get into the 10 years. Let's do the drill down segment of the PB podcast. Let's do your, how did you get into oil and gas? What's going on here?
So when I left New York, I had no job out here in Texas. I just was like, you know what? I'm just going to go out there and I'll figure it out, which is, I've kind of always rolled that way, at least when I was single.
Yeah.
Not anymore, maybe. But so I just kind of, rolled into Texas, and I said, I don't know what I'm going to do, but I've always had a fascination with maps. I said, you know what? I'm going to be a surveyor. I'm gonna be poor for a good 5-10 years, and I'm all right with that. I just want to be happy. I want to be outside. I don't have any kids at the moment. I wasn't married, so I ended up going to surveying school in Tyler, Texas, with 19-year-old country boys around me. I went from Rockefeller Center, an investment banking job, to Tyler, Texas, with some good old boys around me, learning about surveying. And I did that for about 1.5 semesters. And I was just talking to a guy in the oil business, and I told him what I was doing. I had a strong research background, 10 years of it in New York, and now I was learning about mapping and everything like that. And I told him, I said, I'm prepared to be poor for the next 5 years because, I think this is something I'd like to do. And he told me, I tell you what, be in Carrizo Springs on Monday, and you'll already have a high-paying job, and you'll enjoy this job. It's called a petroleum landman.
Wow.
Yeah, and I had just got through buying a new washer, dryer, exercise equipment. I mean, I just stocked my apartment in Tyler, and over the weekend I got on Craigslist, sold everything, and because I had no attachments, I just got in my truck and drove down to Carrizo Springs, and kind of the rest is history.
Is that right?
Started.
Who was that guy?
It was a guy named Garrett Neese, who has been in the industry for probably 20-something years.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you just ran into him at breakfast?
Well, no, I knew his family. I took his
Okay.
sister to prom. Yeah.
Okay.
And I was just in Austin, and we were just talking, and he knew of this opportunity, and
Wow.
so he introduced me to the industry.
Right.
Thanks, Garrett.
We'll have to get him on the show. Man, that is cool. So now you're in Carrizo Springs, and you're a landman
That's right. Yeah.
for a petroleum company.
Yes. Well, I was working for the land company. I was contracted with the land company.
Okay.
The land company's contracted with the oil company. Actually, I don't even think they were contracted with the oil company. I think what they were doing at the time is they were buying oil leases and flipping them.
So buying leases that already had an operator, already had production?
Nope. This was virgin territory. There was no production on it. We were just buying the lease and then flipping that lease to someone else, whether it was the oil company or someone else who was another flipper, another intermediary, and eventually, making money that way, just selling it at a higher price. And what happens a lot of times is these leases expire, and so they don't even go into production. And then another person goes out and leases and starts the whole process over again until eventually, hopefully, an oil company takes the lease, buys the lease, and drills it.
Whoa. So you're going out and finding the mineral owner in an area that has no value coming from their minerals.
Well, they take things into consideration like, there's a well that's, 1 mile to the east of here, and another one to the west of us, another one to the south, and no one's leased this area. So we feel like someone's going to buy this lease from us if we lease it. So what I would do is I would do the title work. That's part of being a petroleum landman is making sure the title is right. So we would find out who owns the minerals, and we would offer them bonus money to sign the lease. And then in that lease, there'd be, different provisions like royalties, the main thing. The term, is it 3-year term?
Wow.
Is it
if it's held by production forever, that's all in there, right?
Well, we would have to investigate that, because let's say that that section of land, 50 years ago, the person who owned those minerals and the minerals to the west of it, where there's production, let's say that's all on the same lease.
50 years ago.
Yeah, and that all went into production 50 years ago. If that's the case, then there's nothing to lease in our section because it's already held by production on that. It's already held. That lease is holding it.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's one of the first things that you need to check before you go hire a bunch of people to go out there and, start running all the minerals on everything and really researching it thoroughly. Is first just do a lease check. See if it's already held by production.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's all at the courthouse?
It used to be. The information is there at the clerk's office.
Yeah.
And now it's a lot of it's online. And you go to a local title company, and that reduces your cost. I believe it's efficient. If it's a good title company, you can get most of the instruments there, but then you got to analyze all the instruments and figure out, do the math.
When you say instruments, you're talking like different documents?
Documents.
Okay.
Yes. And then figure out who owns the minerals that way.
Wow.
And who owns maybe some royalties cut out of that. Maybe someone sold just the royalty. And then if it is held by production, there's things you got to look for, like someone owns an override out of the leasehold part of it, out of the lease. They trade the lease also. So
interesting. Now, this is back in 2012. 2012, you started it in the industry?
It's 2010.
Okay.
Yeah, 2010. So I've been doing this for 12 years now.
12 years, yeah.
Yeah.
So, and right before the kind of the big boom of the horizontals.
That's right. Just started taking off, and that's when I got in. Yes, this was a great time to get in because there was plenty of work. And
yeah, and vertical well leasing is kind of a lot more of a challenge because you got a 640 acre section, 1 mile by 1 mile basically, which are now the common lengths of a horizontal well is 1 mile by 1 mile. But you go from vertical where you're going like, all right, I'm going to drill this 160 or even a 40 acre.
40, yeah, sure.
To I'm going to take this whole section because somebody might just want to put a horizontal through this whole thing. One well is going to go through 640 or at least half a 640 on one side of that. That's a big difference for leasing up acreage in hopes that somebody might drill a piece of this thing.
Right, and someone who's hoping for a mega horizontal well, and if you're a smaller company and you just want to drill a 40 acre well, you can always in the lease say maybe you want shallower depths. Maybe the horizontal is 10,000 feet down below, so you can cut those depths out of the lease. You can say, I just want this 40 acre place right here, and we only want to go down to 7,000 feet, and so we'll release anything that's below 8,000 feet or whatever it may be that you want in the lease. So there's ways that you can structure a lease, and hopefully you can get everybody leased if they wanted a horizontal, and that's not what you have to offer.
Yeah. What'd you learn during that horizontal boom, and now looking back and kind of what you're doing now?
We talked about interest rates before. To me, this was amazing in a different way. I thought that I was just amazed that it carried on for so long, that oil stayed so high. It's all supply and demand at the end of the day. And, a lot of that is whatever Saudi Arabia chooses to do with however much oil the cartel puts on the market or not. But I was amazed that it went for so long. I mean, it was great because at the time, I think Russia was the top producer Russia and Saudi Arabia were the top producers. And it enabled us to become a top producer. I think actually we may be even number one. I haven't checked in a while. but it enabled us to, because we're such a large consumer of oil,
Right.
it really energized the oil industry here and made us less reliant on foreign sources of oil. But at the same time, the profitability of these horizontal wells, again, last time I checked, it kind of reminds me of the airline industry. If you put the entire industry together and look at the profit and loss of the income statements, they haven't made a single dime in the airline industry. They're negative. They've negative profitability.
What?
And if you do that with horizontal wells and you tally all them up, the profitability is slim to none in an aggregate. So there's the economics of horizontal wells haven't been all that strong in an aggregate.
Yep.
Just like the airline industry. And so after a while, the investors have to say, okay, well, just pay me a dividend. For the large companies, they want their money back. Don't keep investing in this, and that's exactly what's happened. The big oil companies, instead of investing in new wells lately, they've been giving their shareholders higher dividend payments because that's kind of at their request. There's this pressure, you guys are not making good returns on this money, so give it back through a dividend.
Wow.
And that's what's happened.
Yeah, I had Tad Wallace on the show, CEO of Universal Chemical Solutions. We're doing some real interesting stuff with older horizontal wells, going in there and not refracking necessarily, but certainly pumping down a mixture of propane and butane, which has this really interesting chemical and physical reaction down in the reservoir, and he's bringing these wells back to life. And he said 70,000 horizontal wells are doing like 20 barrels a day or less.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, wow.
Yeah, the production falls off like a rock after, I don't know if it's 3 or 6 months, but, or maybe it's a year. I don't remember what exactly it is. But once you get over that window of really purging the area, production it drops rapidly. And so these people who, got all this money thinking it was going to last forever, well, you better hope they rework it or whatever they need to do. But because their checks are, they dropped dramatically. They were making all this money in the early months, and they thinking that it's going to last, and they bought a new car and whatever they did with that money, bought a boat, whatever. A lot of them, it's a wake up call. Once a year or two went by, and the production's nothing compared to what it used to be.
Yeah. That goes for the mineral owner, right? The mineral owners looking at
and the oil company too.
Right.
You sunk all that money in it. It really hits them. I mean, they're the ones who put up all $10 million to drill that well.
Right.
So.
Yeah. Real interesting how that's developing, and it was what's interesting to me, and we can go into the completion part of this, but I want to talk more about leasing and get your take on land. But one thing I want to mention is that America's ability to generate energy is second to none. I mean, we have the technology, the people that have done the fracking for so long now, that horizontal drilling and fracking wells, I'd argue there's no other country that comes close to being able to do that in their own resources.
I agree.
But it doesn't actually make money at the end of the day. So that is an interesting place for global politics, or certainly what's going to happen with supply and demand with oil and gas, because at the end of the day, you got to make money. This is capitalism, and the industry or the economy is ran on, at the end of the day, making money. And there's a big issue there, as you obviously pointed out, with simple logic. Like if you put the whole industry in aggregate, the horizontal wells, performance economically not okay. But we generated a ton of energy, and we became energy independent, came number one in the leader of natural gas, certainly, and oil, arguably, for a little while there at least. Is that all going to come back because prices are right? Are we going to do that all again just because the prices are right? I don't know.
I mean, you have to have the right political climate to encourage investment, and right now we don't have that in the current administration. But look what a huge mistake that was, because we quit encouraging investment, and if you stop investing in oil, you put yourself at a risk. I don't even want to call it defense risk, but security risk. If you stop producing oil, I mean, if you go to war, you're putting yourself at a huge security risk. You got to have oil. War doesn't run on renewables,
right?
So
right.
There's definitely a security risk there.
The elementary school, might be able to, or the high school down the street might be able to run off some solar, panels for parking shade plus energy or whatever. But you're right. Yeah, the infrastructure certainly doesn't, and then the call for war certainly doesn't run off renewables. So you need energy. You need to be able to generate that energy really quickly and efficiently. And I know we can do that. There's no question in my mind that we could get back there, but it's like, is it $200 oil? Like, there's definitely, I think, a number, and I don't think it's 120, 130 that even starts getting this going again.
Well, now I think that. Trying to remember what the break-even cost is for fracking. I think it's as low. It depends on the operator. It depends where you are. If you're in the Permian Basin or you're somewhere else where it's your drilling costs are a lot higher going through thick rock. But I think for some operators, if I'm not mistaken, I think the break-even cost was as low as $35-40 a barrel. So, when I was talking about aggregate, I'm talking about the past. So now the operators have become more efficient over time. They've figured out ways to do that. So I don't know, maybe now that they've become more efficient over the next 10 years, it won't be like the airline industry. Maybe they will be cash flow positive and showing profits over the next 10 years because they've improved the technology so much. I don't know, but
drilling efficiencies and that I think is definitely a big wake up to the industry. They're able to set a drill rig, drill a hole, set casing, do all that stuff faster than ever. I mean, it's definitely going real fast, but the performance of these wells is not getting better.
Okay. They probably already hit the sweet spots anyway.
Yeah. There's definitely they're gonna stumble their way into more sweet spots because they're strip mining. That's essentially what we're doing, is strip mining the subsurface of this fluid. So they'll eventually work their way down to the southern parts of the Permian Basin and the northern parts of the Permian Basin. There's all kinds of running room, and there's not a lot of money and not a lot of good performance going back in and recompleting things. Putting $10 million back into a well that's already there and refracking it. Right. The performance of those don't look like they're not nearly getting back to the rates they were when they do the initial frac. That initial release of energy is a big deal. Mm-hmm. But I think you're absolutely right, and I believe there is technology out there that can help us with the decline curve mitigation. It shouldn't drop like a rock. What's going on there? What are we missing? I think there's ways to flatten that out, and maybe there's ways to increase the IPs, and get back to these 1,000+ barrel a day IPs. And then we're ready to go when the prices are right. I believe that, but it's not today. I don't think we're there today. I think it's still a hodgepodge of what the hell's really going on? Who's getting consistent results, and who's really the company that's really buying in and taking the risk, that's saying, okay, we're going to figure this out. We're going to keep going with this. It's a dicey time, I think, in that part of the industry.
Yeah, completions, that's not my forte, but I know that there's still going at it. A lot of these wells are, when the price during price drops, there's it's my understanding there's a lot of wells that are shut in, a lot of horizontal wells. I'm working on on doing some land work right now in Gaines County,
Nice.
in the particular section I'm working on, EOG has a shut-in 640 acre horizontal fracking oil well there. So, and I don't know what the numbers are, but I believe that there's quite a lot of shut-in oil wells, horizontal oil wells right now. Just I don't know what price per barrel they're waiting to turn them back on.
Sure.
But yeah, I'm not real well schooled in what makes them decide to get that well producing or not. So
well, it's probably some science experiments too. This shutting in and waiting, the reservoirs fill themselves back up, so you get this flush production when you do that. And especially if they're pumping in like this UCS company is pumping in butane, propane, you can get a 200 barrels or 400 barrels or 1,000 barrels of that stuff for a certain price right now, and you pump that stuff in and let it sit, let it soak, let it react chemically in that reservoir, and you pay those shut-in payments to the lease to hold it all, and then all of a sudden you're at $100 oil and you turn that well back on, you can get some serious flush production. You just sit there and watch the tubing pressures and the backside pressures just climbing. You're like, right on, the reservoir's talking to us. And I think there's probably some good science experiments, engineering experiments going on there. So talk to me about your take on on an oil and gas lease, just the fundamentals of an oil and gas lease. Can you just break down, what it is and what you're doing?
Yeah, well, it's just it's a contract. They put the names of the oil company on there, put the name of the mineral owner on there, identify the land.
That gets surveyed. There's some kind of survey out there that says you.
The oil companies will survey it before they drill it, but if it's a section of land, you can it's 640 acres. If you put 640 acres and identify the abstract and, you put a good property description in there, that's good enough for a lease.
Okay.
And, you can fine tune it eventually if you survey it and figure out it's 650 acres instead of 640 acres actually, things like that. And then, the term of the lease and the royalty of the lease. And then there'll be all kinds of things in there. Sometimes there'll be details in there about the surface, the water usage. If you want to use the water there, make sure if the oil company wants to use the water, you have to make sure that, I would make sure that that's in the lease. And sometimes the landowner will say, we don't want you using our wells, so they'll put that in the lease. Maybe they don't want a new well to be within 300 feet of a house or a structure or 500 feet. So, that'll be in there. Then you got other little things like, no hunting on my land while you're out here.
Yeah.
Maybe someone says, I don't want you to bring guns out here, period. Or, you got details like that.
Now, is that all kind of standard stuff that's been worked on for many years? Okay.
Yeah, well, each oil company has their own. I mean, there is no standard lease. Some people claim that there is, kind of arguable whether there is a standard lease or not. But then, you have different clauses in the lease, like the Pew clauses are the most important, or one of the most important. It's just, if you... basically, everything gets released that's not producing, whether it's horizontally to the unit or it's below the depth of the unit. A good lease from a mineral owner's point of view will have those kind of clauses, clauses.
So it doesn't say like surface to core of the earth.
Yeah, right.
There's a little more specific here. You're going for the Eagle Ford. I'm going to lease you the mineral rights to the Eagle Ford plus 100 feet above, plus 100 feet below, or something like that. That's what a savvy lease would that's more of a savvy breakdown of a lease.
Yes, and that's, arguably more fair to the mineral owner to have those pew clauses in their lease. It is more fair to the mineral owner because, that affords them more opportunities if they, if you want to come in there and maybe you want to drill, 3,000 feet, well, you haven't shut out the opportunity for a fracking company, a big oil company, to come in there and drill 10,000 feet if they have that pew clause in their lease. So technically, you could run your operation, and so could a bigger operation run underneath it.
So you talked about a term, and you talked about royalty interest as one of the first steps too. The term is what exactly?
Just the length of, so if you want to lease someone and it's a 3-year lease, you have 3 years to get the ball rolling with producing, with drilling, and getting your permits and all that. There's certain things in that lease that say, like, for example, that'll hold the lease for you, the oil company. Like if you, are out there showing efforts to make surveying and showing efforts that you've drilled in the ground and you've disturbed the soil and you're making efforts to drill that lease. So maybe it's not necessarily producing yet, but at least you're making the efforts to do it. And that's all handled. That's all in the details.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. And then the royalty.
Let's talk royalty. So in the heyday of fracking, the royalty went up to 25%. And there's rare cases, maybe, where it went above 25%, but that's just not very smart, I think, from an oil company to give someone a lease above 25%. 25% should be the absolute maximum, I think. But even in today's environment, now that, all this time has gone by and the whole fracking industry as a whole hasn't produced positive cash flow from these horizontal wells, well, it should be fair that they should be able to do that, and they should get more of that income stream, I believe. So, it should start going closer down to an eighth, but there's competition among oil companies.
This is what I don't like about the whole land situation. You guys comfortably go between percentages and freaking fractions all the time, especially when you're negotiating. If you guys are in that freaking room, gosh damn it, I'm over there with a calculator and taking note, and you guys are going, oh, well, let's do it for a quarter, let's do it for an eighth, 1/16. How about that's 20%? And I'm going, what is going on, man? You got the language of land, and then you're talking about a section, the east half of the fourth half of the sixth half,
you have to have a map. Yeah,
gosh.
Right. Well, when we talk that language, it registers with us, but if you don't know if you're not familiar with it, it's easier just to have a map right in front of you.
Yeah.
Maybe a little legend there, 1/4 equals 0.25 or something like that too. That might help.
Oh man, when it gets into the 16ths and the 1/8, I'm going, gosh damn you guys. So you just did it. You went from, you're saying this lease is 25%, but now that we kind of better understand the economics of long-term horizontal wells and how this might need to shift, and you lay that out in front of a mineral owner, and you say, hey, we need to renegotiate this mineral lease. You're getting 25%, but that just doesn't work for us. Tell me, so say that again. You want?
Yeah, you tell them that it's economical for you, the oil company, to drill this well if you can pay an eighth royalty, which is the bottom basically. That's your floor in an oil lease.
An eighth.
Yeah, so kind of goes between an eighth and twice as much, a quarter. Here I go. I'm doing it right now, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, so an eighth and a quarter is kind of your ceiling and your floor of royalty.
Okay.
Yeah,
so an eighth is what's the percentage of an eighth?
0.125.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so
12.5%.
Yes.
So 12.5% to the mineral owner is a big difference. It's a big difference in 25%.
Yeah, it's twice as much for the mineral owner. That's right. So,
wow.
Yeah.
Wow, that's interesting. Okay, so now you got royalties. You're kind of breaking that down. You got a term. You're breaking that down, and then the rest. You talked about a pew clause. What's a
We
pew
can talk
clause?
about bonus payments. That's important. You know, to sign this lease, we'll pay you this many dollars per acre,
Oh wow.
and that has, you know, I've seen it $50 an acre, $100 an acre for some of these smaller verticals. To gosh, kind of the standard, I would say, from where I was leasing in the Eagleford was like $2,000 an acre.
Wow.
Okay, that's kind of like where it was at. And then from there, you might go up, you might go down. But I know, like, I've heard of some federal leases in New Mexico going for $100,000 an acre because the production is just so unbelievable out there. Of course, they're not going to pay that unless, you know, they are very confident that even though they're paying that much money, they're going to, you know, it's going to be a gusher out there.
Wow.
Yeah,
Can you get closer to the mic? Sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, sure.
You scoot in. Man, okay, so that's pretty interesting. You get bonuses. So the mineral owner is getting bonuses. They're getting this term. They're getting this operator that's coming in, spending all the dollars. They obviously got to do work, you know, build roads and fences maybe, and you know all those things are built into it. And then what else is kind of the fundamentals of a lease? What else? What are we missing? Anything?
There's many different provisions there. I think, you know, I pretty much covered the major ones. I know I'm probably forgetting some.
What's the most ridiculous thing you've seen in a lease? You got to feed my cows every Tuesday.
You know, I haven't really seen anything like that. I've seen something like that in a warranty deed, but I haven't seen anything really ridiculous in an oil and gas lease like that. Not yet.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm sure it exists, but I just haven't really seen it.
Now, what are you doing today? Like, what is your job? I know you got your business card. So you tell us what you're doing right now.
Yep. Right now I'm going out to my man cave in my backyard, and I'm getting on my computer and getting on the internet and looking into who owns the minerals and the leasehold on a horizontal well owned by EOG. I'm working through a land company, and this other oil company is interested in buying that.
Oh,
They're
okay.
interested in buying the leasehold, and they want to know who the mineral owners are.
Okay, so you're
Yep.
working for the person that wants to buy that horizontal well.
Yes, they want to buy the
Whoa.
leasehold. Yes,
They want
that's
to
right.
Okay, so
The lease, the well. Yes.
okay,
That's
so
right.
Okay, so that's kind of it's kind of what I'm trying to do. You got to, it's already producing, it's already drilled.
Yeah.
And you're saying, so this company's going, man, I want to offer you a good deal on the well. The current operating company's going, okay, I think I'm going to take that deal. That sounds about right. And then you come in before the deal's done, and you're verifying.
Verifying. That's right. Who owns it? That's what I do. Who owns the minerals? Who owns the leasehold?
Nice.
Yep.
Okay.
And were there any overrides taken out? You know, because that'll reduce the profitability for the oil company if they buy it. If there's 10% override that was taken out,
Whoa.
then well, that's 10% of the entire thing, and that's cost free usually.
Whoa.
Yeah,
So a royalty interest payment is to the person who owns the mineral rights,
Yes.
and they get 15% of the oil sales, right? They don't have to pay any LOE. They don't pay the taxes on it.
Now, see, that depends on the details of the lease.
Okay.
There are some cost-free royalty where, let's say the mineral owner let's say it's a competitive area and they negotiated to get a 25% cost-free royalty. Now, arguably, there's been some litigation about this. You have to be real careful how you word that cost-free royalty because some oil companies believe that you can still take something out of that, and others don't. Some mineral owners believe that you cannot take anything out of that, but it depends on how exactly you worded that.
Okay, so you're saying the mineral owners sometimes can be charged hauling fees or production
by
tax?
default they are charged.
Okay.
But I say by default, it's the default lease, it says in there, minus these certain charges
Right.
for whatever it
minus
may be.
minus fees and
Transportation, compression, whatever it
yeah,
may be.
yeah.
Yep. And but an attorney may take over that lease and make it, or a landman may take over that lease, helping the mineral owner and make it cost-free royalty.
Free
Yeah,
royalty.
it just depends how it's
Okay,
negotiated.
let's just go with the standard deal where it's 15 or 20% mineral, 20% goes to the mineral owner, less taxes and fees.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and now the operator's getting 80% on that lease. Oh, but wait, there's some fine detail down here, some small print, and Andrew Douglas is getting a 10% override.
That's right. Yep. You have to run the leasehold as well, not just the mineral.
Where does that get documented? Like,
It's all in the clerk's office.
Is that right?
Yes.
So you got an overriding royalty interest owner that doesn't own the mineral rights, but that the operator who put that lease together with the owner of the mineral rights went off and did a side deal with some individual.
That's right.
And said, I'm going to give you 10% of this lease too. So now the operator's getting 70% minus less taxes and fees.
Now, and 10% is, I've seen it higher, I've seen it lower, but usually I don't know what the actual average is, but you may frequently I'll see something like just a 2 or 3% override, or maybe no override in there at all.
And the mineral owner gets no say in
the overrides. No,
in the overrides.
That's all. Usually, what happens, or what used to happen more often, is the person who, the land company who bought the leases, who got everybody leased. They took the leases out, and so now they have all the leasehold. Maybe it's for a particular oil company, and that particular oil company decides, you know what, we're not going to drill this area, so let's sell our leasehold. So that oil company will take an override. They'll go ahead and sell it. They'll make some money there, but they'll also take a 1% override or a 2% override or half of a 1% override.
Oh my
So if they do drill it, they get a free ride, half of 1% or 1%.
Whoa,
Yep.
eating away at the whole freaking system there, the whole economic system.
It's my understanding that overrides are not as frequent as they once were. It's usually now just more of a cash deal where they sell the lease and for a higher price than what they paid for it, and they take their money that way, and you get full control over it. I don't have anything to do with the production, but it definitely still occurs. I see it all the time.
Wow.
But I don't think it's as frequent as it used to be.
Yeah.
Or maybe just like a company that was not an oil company, and they're just out there buying leases, and they never had any intention of drilling it themselves. They're just some kind of company that goes out there and buys leases. Maybe that applies more to them, where they don't get to take an override. I don't know that to be a fact, though.
That's interesting. And then there's working interest partners that the lease can take on, right? And they now have some individual or maybe another company even that says, I'm going to help pay the lease operating expenses for some of the profit that the operator is getting in this deal. And the operator can go do a deal with someone as a working interest partner, right?
Yeah, the working interest, they're going to be responsible for the expenses, whoever's the working interest owner. So, they're going to be responsible for...
And then there's non-ops, right? Then there's non-op partners, non-operating... Is that a working interest kind of?
The non-operating partners can still be working interest owners.
Okay.
Yep. They're,
Makes sense.
But there's some, and the term is fleeting my memory right now, but there's some people who own the leasehold, and they're not working interest owners, and they will get less of the stream of whatever their...
what are they called?
That's what I'm saying.
It's not a royalty. It's not a royalty interest. It's not an override. It's not a working interest. It's something else.
Yeah, it's just there's a term for the leasehold owner who doesn't want to pay the expenses.
Interesting.
Yeah, and their profitability gets reduced though because it's called non-consent. That's what it is.
Non-consent.
Yeah, they go non-consent, so they don't get as much because they're not paying anything into the expenses.
Non-consent interest
Yes,
owner.
sir.
Oh, non-consent interest owner? Is that what that is? Or just non-consent?
I just know it as they're going non-consent.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
so they're a leasehold owner and they went non-consent. So
Wow.
yeah, I'm sure some people call it different things, but that's how I know it.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, man. Yeah, that's cool. You got us lined out on the basics of the lease, and then you get to renegotiate all that stuff, huh? Like at any time you can go in and sit down with the mineral owner and say, man, look at the books, guys. Like I'm hurting over here. I'm either gonna lose this lease, you're gonna lose these wells. Like, can we renegotiate? Can we?
Yeah, I'm sure you can always renegotiate and just, maybe you want to pitch to them that, the only way you're going to be able to do this is if you renegotiate the royalty from whatever it was, a quarter, 20%, to an eighth, 12.5%, something like that, in order to make it economical for you. Otherwise, there's not going to be any new production. You're not going to rework it.
Wow.
That's definitely an argument you can.
Wow. Same with the overriding guys, right? You can go find them and go, hey, you've been carrying this override for 12 years on this thing. It's killing the economics. I'm the new operator. I'm coming in and I need to buy the override from you. Or
do that. Yeah. I don't think it's too common to contact a owner of an override and renegotiate that, but I'm sure I know it's happened before, but I don't.
Some of
think
these
it's common.
things gotta happen.
Yeah.
It's gotta happen. These things are just left for dead. There's so many wells that are just not. It's not worth it because too many people are getting too much percentages of other stuff. So the operators it's just not worth it. It's either you're gonna kill this thing, no one's gonna make money, or everybody can renegotiate and we can work together and make something happen. All right, we're going to go into the completion part of this show, which we've learned a lot, or certainly I have, and now I just want to. One thing I was remembering was kind of where do you see deals transacting, and we kind of talked offline that that's not exactly where you're at as a landman consultant. You're not in those discussions of what deals are going for, but is it $40,000 per flowing barrel? It's $80 oil. It's real situational. What's the cash flow that the lease is doing? But maybe one thing that you could shine some light on is, if you're evaluating a company or you're thinking about a company and they got 5-6 different leases, this one little offset lease, it's not really making the company much money. But what is it from an internal perspective or from a land perspective? Is there am I missing something, or is there just no more value than holding that position and getting a little bit of cash flow from it? And you can sell it and get it off the books, or you keep it for any other reasons, any other benefits for the company to have an extra lease that's just kind of trickling along?
I mean, the oil company, I think you covered all the bases there. I mean, just depends on how much it's going to cost for them to rework that well and get it going, and versus whether they should sell it off or maybe they want to just hold that area because sometime in the future they may decide that they want to get it up and going. So that's, according to what I know, that's their three decisions they have. Their three options.
Okay.
Get it started now, get it started later, or just sell it off.
Yeah.
And it all depends on the economics there.
Yeah. Yep. Right on. Interesting. Well, so what's it? What's completion for you? What's the next 5 years, 10 years look like for you?
I think maybe the next 5-10 years from now, I'd like to be on a deal team that is trading prospects or working for an oil companies where I have those opportunities to take overrides.
Oh, nice.
Because that's kind of like your 401k for a petroleum landman.
Okay.
We don't have 401ks.
Right.
But
right.
if we can work something out with an oil company and get some overrides, well, especially if it's a well that's going to produce for many years to come, which typically been vertical wells.
Yeah.
See, that's the upside of a vertical well. I mean, I have a royalty in a vertical well that's been producing since 1935 or something like that. Of course, I mean, I just owned it the last, that predates me, but
Sure.
What happened to me is, how did I get that one? I went to a tax sale and I bought some land, and it was in the middle of, I didn't even know it had an oil well at the time. By the way, these opportunities are like practically gone now that everything's gone online. But I bought this, I went out to this, in Atascosa County, went to a tax sale, bought this land, this 10 acres in the middle of someone's ranch, and flipped the surface to them, kept the minerals, and I get a check every month. It's nothing big, pays my water bill.
Yeah.
But if I could do that 50 more times,
that's right,
then that could be something. But I could work something
cool.
out where it would be economical for me.
So how does that go? So you help do all the land work. You help verify exactly what you're getting, and then you also are helping to negotiate the deal, or right. So and
Yes.
then that gets transacted, and you're saying, okay, for me, you're putting all the skin in the game, or you're also getting paid at the same time.
Yeah, I'm not putting the skin in the game. I'm just a consultant. I'm
see.
just so the land company's paying me, and I'm helping them get this person leased and making sure that the title work is right. And what they do with it after that, they send me my check 30 days later, hopefully.
Yep. Yeah.
That's one of the pitfalls of being a landman is all of us have been, most of us have been around. There's been that one oil company. In my case, it was an oil company that went bankrupt, and so I never got that check.
So that transaction goes through, and you're thinking what? You just want a percent or two of whatever happens, and goes forward on that lease.
Yeah, well, where I'm at, I'm not getting overrides right now, but that's what I want. That's what in the future. That's what I want to do with if I'm working with an oil company. If I can work something out, I'd like to maybe I won't make as much in my day rate,
right?
But I'll get an override, which I think it should be done because it really it puts my interests aligned with everybody else.
Right.
I think they should go back to that. It would definitely make for better quality work. I mean, I'm not speaking for myself there. I mean, my work's going to be quality whether I have an override or not. But I think some people, if they just feel, I'm just getting day rate and my pay's been the same for the last 15 years.
Right.
But your rate's going to go up if you work directly for the oil company compared to if you working with a land company. You're going to make more money that way. You should, but if you get an override, maybe not. But that compensates for that.
Yeah, man. Interesting. So now you're developing this plan in your mind, and you're going to start executing your actions towards doing this, towards becoming a landman that's getting more into the trading part and more into the longevity of production and getting tied into that. So that's going to be your next 5 to 10 years. You're going to go do that because that's who you are. That's you set out. You obviously set out a plan. You go and you actually start doing that. So I'm excited for that. Where do you see the industry going? Where do you see oil and gas going in the next 5 to 10 years while you're doing this?
Well, it all depends on Saudi Arabia and Russia, I think, and some other factors too. Maybe Venezuela will come back online. But it's all going to be, whether or not it's economical for oil companies to continue drilling. And if there's war in Russia that's ongoing, if Saudi cuts supply, if Venezuela increases their production, those are all factors that are going to play into whether or not it's how economical it's going to be for the oil industry to continue.
Yeah.
But I agree with what Charlie Munger has to say, that's Warren Buffett's sidekick, that the oil industry is going to be around for a long time coming. So, there may be trendy for all these renewables to come online, and I definitely see some value to doing that for sure. But I think at the same time, it's going to take, I'd say, 100 years to exterminate the oil industry. We're going to be here, and especially if something like a bigger war happens, then it's going to be inevitable.
Yeah.
And we're not even talking about military. I mean, all the different products for oil. I mean, are they going to get rid of plastic right away?
Right.
So
No, I know.
I think the oil industry is definitely in my lifetime. It'll still be here.
Yeah.
And I enjoy being in the oil industry. I think it's fun at times, and there's a pot of gold out there in the oil industry. You hit the right well. I'm not quite there where I'm having those kind of opportunities, but if I keep at it, maybe there will be.
Absolutely.
So,
yeah, it's interesting, man. There's a strange disconnect with reality. I feel like when we're talking about renewables and electric vehicles and oil and gas and this idea of what's going, humans are somehow destroying this planet, which is where we come from. Like if geologically, if you have the ability to step back and just kind of realize that we are the earth, we are one in this nature, we are one in this thing, but we have this mentality that for some reason we feel like we can control it like the AC dial in the inside of our car.
Right.
There's a huge disconnect there. We weren't brought here from some other planet, no, the geologic rock record has us kind of coming right out of this thing. Like we're a part of it. Nature is very, very real. And our understanding of that is very primitive. We do not understand the real detailed interconnections to nature and our place in this. So we just need to relax, that for me, that's the perspective of just kind of hold on. There's a reason why hydrocarbons are so valuable to the way we operate. Like it's part of nature. If anything, building electric batteries and building all these things that are kind of against nature, that gives me a little bit more of a red flag than what we have. Like we need to understand the fundamentals in order to get to true innovation and that next true step in sustainability for humans on this planet or whatever. Like these big ideas, but we don't understand the fundamentals. There's a disconnect.
Well, I just wonder how many stockpiles of these batteries. I mean, those are big batteries that are in the cars right now. They are.
Yeah.
So how much waste is we going to produce from electric cars? Solar panel waste,
right.
Wind turbine waste. They're just burying those in the ground for the most part. I mean, there's some technologies out there, but there's a lot of waste from those industries too.
Yeah. Heck yeah. Yeah, I hear you.
Not to mention the energy that produced all of that is probably oil related.
Oh, not probably. It 100% is. The only way a
wind turbine,
the only way a wind turbine is economically made is because you have the reliable energy of hydrocarbons making it. If you had a wind turbine making that wind turbine, it'd be really, really challenging economically. Disastrous economically. So there's some real interesting things to go down that rabbit hole, and I agree with what Mr. Munger is making his logical observation of like oil and gas not going anywhere. That's exciting for us because we're learning business. We're learning these valuable things that we can pass on to our children about how this all works and how global politics are tied into this. And, human history is going into a place it's never been. The integration and humanity and how things really work, that's exciting for us. And I think, to become the new teachers of the next generation and really understand how this goes. Give me your gut feeling. You said, the kind of war in Russia. You talked about Saudi Arabia either opening the floodgates or cutting back, and then you talked about Venezuela. Give me your gut feeling on each of those for the next 5 to 10 years. Which way are they going?
Well, if Biden gets reelected, obviously there's going to be more of a reality that Venezuela will come back online the way it once was. And that would obviously put downward pressure on the price of oil and gas.
Okay.
As for Russia, that's very unpredictable what is ultimately going to happen. But if Putin is still in charge, I do not see that ending anytime soon. So next 5 years, probably going to continue.
Wow.
Of course, I could be totally wrong about that. I mean, who knows what might be worked out.
What's your gut telling you? Is your gut telling you it's gonna keep grinding
if
out?
Biden is still there, I think it's going to continue. If someone else comes in that has more of a that's more aggressive, then it could stop. Not necessarily. I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen there. My gut is I don't know.
You're watching.
Yep. Yeah.
These are the things you're watching. And
Yep.
Saudi Arabia, you think they're going to crank it up, the production knob? They're cranking it down?
I think all else equal, I think they're just going to continue with basically what they've been doing. I don't think we're going to see anything dramatic from them. But again, who am I? Who am I?
Well, you pay attention to
Yeah,
this
I'm not a
stuff.
diplomat, so I don't have any high-level negotiations with them or anything. So I'm an armchair political analyst right now, along with everybody
Good.
else, I guess.
Yeah. Well, man, I enjoy your feedback. I enjoyed the conversation. I appreciate you doing
Me
this
too.
podcast.
Yeah, I enjoyed this. This is
Right on.
great.